Hi everyone, this is Heather Quick. Good evening, I should say, and I haven't been on Facebook Live in a while. Wanted to tell you a little bit about what's going on, and that is going to tie right into the topic today, which is what to do when your divorce starts to go south. What are some signs, which some of them are obvious, you'll know, but some other things we can talk about, and then what do you do? And how we can help, some things I've been doing, and certainly some action you can take on your own. So, the reason I haven't been doing my videos, I really committed to do a little bit more often, speak to women about divorce, educate women on what we can do to help and things that we think women want to know. And a lot of that is because you really don't know what you don't know in the realm of divorce. Because even if you've been through it, I think that once before, and many people have, it's certainly not uncommon, but there are different issues involved during each divorce, and depending on where you are and which stage of life, and if you have children this time around, you didn't last time around, maybe you have more money this time around than you did last time around, whatever it is, it can be different the second time. So a lot of my goals with these videos is I'm going to give you some information that maybe you didn't think of or you have thought of but didn't know who to ask. And it just help you begin to go on that path if you're going down that path of divorce. And if you're already in it, how maybe you can make better choices and understand the process a little bit better. So what I've been doing is, as I've taken on the concept of women-only divorce, it has become apparent that no one else is doing this in the country. And we have a unique opportunity to help women, and we're the only ones doing it. All the other law firms, there are many male-only law firms that only represent men, but there are no firms that we have found that are women-only, women-run, that represent women only. So that gives us a unique opportunity to serve a lot of people. And as that happened, I have been, fortunate in the fact that now I'm involved with these cases, but I've met women who, outside of Florida, really have had difficult, horrific results in a divorce, and related to the custody of the children and what's been going on with the children. And that can just have, it will change your life. And I know that from meeting these women and what they're going through. And I only can imagine myself, but for those women who are currently going through a divorce and they think, wow, it would never occur to me that I could lose my children or end up in a situation, as many women are, supervision, or a situation where the court allow children to leave the country and you can't get them back. Those are horrific things that have happened and continue to happen. And it's important to know that the risks do exist. So I'm become involved with a case in Washington, D.C. And so I've been traveling there a lot, involved in that representation. And it's wonderful. I get to work with attorneys up there in that area and strategize and begin to hopefully make a difference for my client in the future litigation. I can't do a whole lot to change what happened in the past, but looking forward, we can make some changes. And that's important to know, that when your divorce is final, there are a lot of things you can't change. Certainly most of the financial decisions and that happen either through a trial or through a consent or settlement agreement. So when people bring me in at a later date, it is what I can help with is strategize, well, I can't fix what happened before, but is there an opportunity for us to make a difference in the future? And through that relationship with the case in Washington, D.C., I'm also working on a case in Maryland, which happens to be close there, so I haven't been able to hopefully, I've been trying to schedule those two together and work on that case. So it's been a neat opportunity for me, very unique, and I'm really looking forward to making a difference in these women's lives with their litigation moving forward. And we're just starting to see that more and more because of the way that we approach divorce. We approach our clients, and the way we strategize and plan with the divorce is different than a lot of other firms. So many women find themselves, unfortunately, towards the end of the divorce, or even worse, when it's over, and really, didn't have the strategy, advice, planning that the Quick Law Group offers, and so they're out there seeking something different that we can provide. So that leads me into how to know when your divorce is going south, and I don't know if that's the catchiest title that I could come up with, but for today, it was something that I wanted to educate you about. Because most individuals, when they first hire an attorney for a divorce, it's the first time they've ever hired an attorney. And, you're doing the best you can at the time. You're choosing somebody based on most likely a recommendation or just the sense that you got when you met them. And then it's a relationship that obviously you're paying for their work, and in any type of litigation, the longer it goes on, the more you've paid. So it's very hard, I think, emotionally for clients to make a decision to switch. Things have to go pretty bad, and it's not pleasant. And sometimes the relationship breaks down. Sometimes the client feels they were not well represented, and all that goes to say is it could be any number of those things, or that you got a bad ruling with the judge. What I have been finding lately in evaluating cases that are already concluded with a bad decision, so that the hindsight's 2020 in anything. So I'm not trying to say that I would have expected that at the time, but now, of course, I know, and I see a lot of custody situations where there is an issue. There's certainly issues of domestic violence, and those aren't always taken seriously by the court, and whether they're not well presented. Unfortunately, a lot of domestic violence doesn't have a lot of witnesses except he said, she said, and I don't think that the justice system, and that includes the judges and the attorneys, fully understand the psychology and the epidemic of domestic violence in this country. Even 2 years ago, when there was the uproar with the NFL, but look at it now, it just hasn't changed a thing. So that's not changing. And if you are a victim of domestic violence, financial abuse, emotional abuse, with a controlling partner, I hope you're listening to this, because if they can no longer control you through the marriage, through finances, they're going to do it through the children, and they might not stop at any means. And frankly, if I haven't seen this happen so many times, I might not believe it, because it almost seems that it's not believable. But that's the biggest number one red flag. If you are going through a divorce and you've been a victim of domestic violence, please have a good conversation with your attorney and make sure they understand that these cases are different than your run-of-the-mill divorce. And it's important, because the controlling behavior of that sometimes can get switched to the children, and things can happen very rapidly in those types of cases. And I've seen several situations where custody got flipped from a mother to a husband, and she didn't see it coming. So you need to have those conversations with your attorney, because your husband much better, obviously, than your attorney does. And get some professionals in there, some mental health professionals in there sooner rather than later, because you're going to need that. You need more than, what you said against what he says. And your children should not be brought into the court system, and most of the time they can't be, and it's never really a good idea. So you're going to need those mental health professionals, and your attorney's going to help select the right ones who may specialize and have expertise in these areas, and also who've been to court. Please don't underestimate the importance of that when hiring an expert. You should know if they are able to testify, because that's special art, and some are much more comfortable testifying than others. And again, that is going to help you down the road. And so some of the things that I've seen happen in these very, extreme outcomes with these custody cases there's also this element of like who's moving where. And that's, again, a control thing. And you got to jump on it quickly. I think a lot of what happened in some of these cases that I'm being brought into at a later date underestimated the other side, really never anticipated that something like that would happen. A common argument that is being made is that of alienation. So I've done some research and I've talked to some experts on both sides, and it's very subjective as far as what is alienating behavior. And so then you look at what is alienating, and then how are there effects of it. So I had an expert tell me, now I don't agree with this necessarily, but that alienating behavior is one parent buying the children too many toys, because then it just makes the other parent look bad because they can't afford to. And that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I think that as parents, you do what you can. When you don't see your child as much, I think it's almost easier to buy things because you don't have the time to spend with them. I found that to be a fascinating take on it. And I will tell you, in the cases where I have become involved in, and several of them are from New York too, where they have this alienating behavior and stuff, they only blame the mothers for alienation, and therefore make a decision and have successfully argued to remove children from mothers to fathers because the mother was alienating them to some extent. It was just really interesting, and like I said, I don't know that I would have believed it if I'm not seeing it. So if you begin to hear that through maybe your husband's expert, and there seems to be some conversation or motions on that, you need to have a talk with your attorney and say, listen, this is serious. This can go south really quickly. How are we going to prepare for that? We really need to understand what their expert is saying. Are we deposing them? Look at the research. There are a lot of great experts. The ones that I know right now are currently in New York, but they have some amazing literature and they're wonderful resources that can guide you in the right direction. Because I'm seeing it more with children, and you just got to get in this early and before final decisions are made. And especially if if the judge is already involved in hearing this and starting to make up their mind, they're human beings. You need to get in on this and get started really quickly, because during a divorce, I will tell you, even the best clients, the best people act badly. Okay, you're hurt, they're hurt, things get said, actions get maybe taken out of context. The last thing you want or should have happen that affect the rest of your life or your relationship with your children. So it's very important to take it seriously, and that's not being paranoid, it's just being realistic, because I think that it is a better situation to say, well, maybe we were a little over-prepared or overreacted, and I'd rather have that conversation with my client, or I'm glad we hired this expert and they came in and now we're all good, than saying, oh, sorry, I guess I should have had that expert, or some kind of evidence, something to help bolster your case. Now you have less time with your children, and the court has a bad view of you and is ordering you to take parenting classes and maybe even supervision. Some of these things that I've seen lately are very drastic. So just be aware, because I think that's the biggest thing. We don't know what we don't know. You haven't been in this arena before. You haven't maybe been in such an adversarial situation with your spouse before, so you don't know what they can do. And you may, and your attorney may discount that, and I get that. We are in a field, and I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying, try to artfully explain to them what you're thinking. And that's why I'm talking about this, to help you. There are certain behaviors that kind of stem from the domestic violence that you can learn about and get help with. And you talk to a therapist, or, explore that, so that you are not in a situation where you are asking, me to come into your case because now you're being supervised with your children, and experts have said that you shouldn't be the primary parent because you're alienating them. We're digging ourselves out of a hole at that point. And as much as you may want me to go write the record, we lose a lot of time with that, and it may not be possible. So we've got to take a lot of good strategic moves and really work to position you in a better way so that you can then have time with your children again. And that sounds, it is very serious, but that's why I felt it was important to talk about it and let you know that I have firsthand been a part of these cases now that I'm being brought in, years after they've been completed to try to change the eventual outcome. As far as finances go in the divorce, every state's going to be different, and there's going to be a distribution that is hopefully equitable and fair. Well, I don't like to use those words together because the law is not always fair. Everybody wants it to be, but depending on what side you're on, you may not think so. But I do. You need something that's a big sign if it's about to go south is they won't provide any financial information to you, and your attorney is not doing anything about it. That's a real problem. You need to get financial disclosure. You're entitled to it, and you're going to have to pay your attorney to go to court if they're going to not be compliant. But you might get those fees back, and it is that important. If they're hiding money and they're not providing you with full disclosure, you're going to have a hard time, one, trying the case if it has to go to litigation. But hopefully you might even be able to mediate it and settle it. But you need all the information. Information is what really helps you make an educated decision. This is part of the assets that you are entitled to, the marital property. You need to know everything there is, and that includes what it's worth, and maybe not what you think it's worth, what it actually is worth, and understand the debt. And then there's so many tax consequences if you have a lot of rental properties. There's so much that can be investigated especially when you're in an opportunity to settle it and have all of that information. So if you're getting close to either a trial, hearing, mediation, and you don't have that information, that's a big red flag that you need to talk to your attorney. And they may say, hey, you need to pay more in the retainer because we got to go to court because your husband's difficult. Okay, that's the way it is. Do it. Find a way. Usually when one side is not cooperative and not providing the information that the law requires, you can get your fees back. But the reality is you need that information. And should you have to fight for it? No, but that's what happens. I told you, in divorce, people act badly. And expect it, which is one of the things that we do. Expect they're going to act badly. Expect they're going to lie and they're going to hide. So go look for it and figure out ways to do it. There's a lot of ways. You can subpoena the documents. You can go in searching through things and get things from the different banks. But you got to start that early. Everything takes so much time, and no one really ever complains that their divorce went too quickly. It's always taking too long. So if you've already been in it for 6 months to a year, and now you're like, we're about to go to mediation, I don't have any of these documents, I don't know, what these things are worth, what the value of these accounts are, that's a big problem. And you need to hold your attorney accountable for that. And you need to, if your spouse is being difficult and your husband, you're going to have to, be willing to pay the money to let them go to court so the judge can order them to do things. And that is a small percentage of cases that happen, but they do. It happens more likely in family law, but I'll tell you, even in business litigation, if they don't want to give it up, there's probably a good reason. So that's my theory anyway. And I tell my clients all the time, give them all the information they ask for because we're not hiding anything and there's no point. If there's an argument to be made that it's an unequal evaluation or it's non-marital, then we'll do that. And we will do all that's necessary to do that argument. But the last thing you want to do is hide it. And the judge is going to think the same thing. That's common sense. Everybody's like, well, if you're hiding it, it must be because you don't want to split it. You don't want us to know about it. So that's really those are some of the red flags that you may ignore more likely. I mean, you're not going to ignore if, think the case is moving slowly, your attorney's not going to call you back. You're going to know, okay, something's going on here. I'm going to take action on that. But these are some of the signs that I have seen lately and kind of trying to correct the wrong and fix the mistakes that were made, which, is much more expensive, unfortunately. And it can't always be done. And that's the worst thing. An attorney never really wants to tell you, I can't do this. I can't fix this because it's a final order and there are things that can't be changed at this time. That's not an answer I ever really want to give a client, but of course, sometimes that is the answer. So if you're going through this situation, know someone who is, keep your ears open for those kind of things so that you can help them, because most of the time your attorney they are on your side and they want to help you, and you might have to be that squeaky wheel if they are not giving you the information you want and say, this is what I want and this is why, and I want to move forward with this. Because most of the time, it's very easy to do that, and yes, they should guide you along that path and tell you that. but they might not have. And, you know, and the one last thing you may say as the attorney, well, I don't want to pay for that. Let's just get this done on the cheap. Well, you get what you pay for. And if your attorney is saying you need these documents, we need this expert, we need to do these things, just listen, because that's why they're telling it for you. They're on your side, believe it or not. You know, your husband's got his own attorney, and your attorney is not on anyone else's side but yours. And that's why they're saying we need to invest this money to investigate these accounts, this financial information, or to combat some arguments that the other side has made. So I hope that is helpful to you as far as, you know, reasons that a divorce can go south, and that you're able to nip that in the bud, stay on track, so that you don't need us to come in and try to fix it later, because that is not the ideal situation. But of course, you can contact the Quick Law Group if you have any questions and you're concerned about moving forward in the divorce process or finishing up and just need some advice or a second opinion. Thank you so much. There's been a lot of comments. I really couldn't respond during the video, but I'll go through them and respond accordingly. Thank you, and I hope you all have a great night.